Hello YouTube. It's been a while since I made my last video and I wanted to basically wrap it up, especially about my childhood and what radicalized me. Now, despite the I'm using the word radicalize, I wanna I want to make it very clear to everyone that's watching this video that I do not hate any particular group. I do not hate, you know, any sex, religion, transgender, none of that. I really don't hate anybody, especially a particular group, because me personally, I just want to live my life. I just want to be happy. I want to enjoy my life. I want to do activities with people, especially, have fun and basically enjoy life. Like, it's not that complicated, guys. And most importantly, I just want to be left alone. But the problem is, I feel like whenever life gives me lemons, I tend to throw the lemon away, especially in a pile of dirt, if that makes any sense. And as you see this picture right here, as I usually do, children don't get traumatized because they are hurt. They get traumatized because they're alone with the hurt. I feel like this is very true, but the only person in this world that understands me was my little sister. Me and my little sister, we have very close relationship, and that's because we share some of the traumatizing things that we went through our childhood. But sadly, though, well, not sadly, it's kind of natural. It's natural to grow up apart because as you're growing up, there's always that pivotal point where you do your own thing. And of course, that eventually happened between me and my sister. But what radicalized me, guys, and again, despite I'm using that word, to look into MGTOW, black pill, the blue pill, well, I already said MGTOW, the community, especially the manosphere, like people, like the internet likes to call it. What got me into it is because it's what they were catering towards and the message they were saying. And as I was growing up, feeling alone, feeling depressed, being traumatized with the fact that I had an angry mother, a mother that was dominating the household. Like, I grew up in a household where the man was either not there, and when the man was there, it was my mother that was dominating the scene. And I will admit, in my part, I'm a little bit feminine because I grew up in a female dominated household, but I always try my best to retain my masculinity and remind myself that I am a man, not a freaking girl or man child, if that makes sense. But you guys are gonna notice that a lot of guys that grow up in the female dominated house, they tend to be a little bit feminine. But anyway, back on track about my childhood memories and what radicalized me. What radicalized me is essentially the fact that I just want to know the truth. I want to know the truth and what I could do to it. Like what I could do against my own issue, my own problem, and how to resolve and fix them. And sometimes, in order to gain that truth, you have to delve deep into the territory that makes you uncomfortable. And in my case, I delve into the uncomfortable truth with the MGTOW, with the manosphere, the black pill community. And yes, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. But no, guys, I'm not blindly radicalized. I'm open to many ideas. I'm open to basically anything. But what I really want is down to earth, common ground, common sense, answers that will help me in the long run, but more importantly, what help me to resolve my problems. And sadly, though, there are some problems that will never be fixed. The only thing I could do is focus on myself and fix myself. But I cannot, there's some things that you cannot control. And one of them is, well, you guess it, women. Me as a man, I cannot control women. And, I cannot control what my mother feels. I cannot control what my sister feels. I can't, control anybody. But what I can control is myself and the choices I can make in order to improve myself and improve my personal situation in the coming future. Now, just like that quote that Bruce Lee said, knowledge is not enough. You must apply. You must learn how to do. That quote is my most favorite quote because if you guys remember my last video when I discussed about that quote, you could be like a smart person, but you could be filled with knowledge. But if you don't know how to do things, then that knowledge is kind of useless. So applied knowledge, like learning how to do things, knowing how to make things happen, that's the most important skill. That not only is good for yourself, but what people want to see. And why do you think a lot of jobs require experience? Because most of the people that are graduating university, the reason why they're struggling is because they have the knowledge of how things goes, but they do not know how to apply things. And that's why a lot of jobs want, people with experience, because they know that the people that are hiring with, you know, the people that are hiring that are looking for job experience, they want the people who have job experience because they know how to apply what they already know. I hope I'm making sense, guys. And sorry, I'm like doing mouth salad here, but that's the thing that I'm trying to say, guys. Knowing is not enough. It's also apply. And for me, right now, as of me making this video, I have a very hard time applying things. But at the same time, I'm gathering much knowledge that I can, but I just don't know how to apply things. That's my biggest issue right now. Now, discussing back to my childhood, I well, to break it down in the basics, I grew up in a troubled household. I witnessed my biological father getting cheated on, and eventually he has to break away from my mother. But my mother wanted custody over me, so I became. Well, I didn't become, but I live under my mother's rule, and because my mother was a very, what's the best word I can say this? She easily gets very angry with everything. So if I were to make my mother angry, I would expect a beating. And one time I talked back to my mother, but this is when I was like 6 or 8 years old. I think I was 6 years old when this happened because my father was still around. My own mother, she would literally punch me in the face and I would suffer a nosebleed. And since then I got scared of talking back. And my mother, she is like very cruel when it comes to, not hesitating of beating you up. My mother, yeah, she really did beat me up when I was a little child. And one time I made her so angry that she dragged me to the house and literally beat me up as a pulp. And I was on the floor crying. And my mother beat me up so badly that she almost fainted out of exhaustion. And my stepdad came in just to calm her down. But yeah, my mother had issues. Like, she had anger issues. And one thing I noticed is that whenever we move into a different place, because we did move a lot, my mother always get upset or angry or cause some kind of issue or have kind of issue with a neighbor. The only time I've ever seen my mother deal with a neighbor peacefully was the very last woman that she was renting a house with. And I have a feeling it's because I called her out, and at that time I was a teenager. At that time, I noticed that my mother always get into fights with neighbors, and I called her out on that, and I think my mother kind of stopped, you know, getting into issues with neighbors. And when my mother was renting a house, to a neighbor, she, dealt with business peacefully and did her best to be respectful. And the woman, our neighbor at that time, she was also being respectful, and I think she understood that too. Plus, she had a good job, which she was a nurse, etc. But my mother, because she had anger issues, I ended up being quote unquote a nice guy. And the reason why I was a nice guy, like kind of harmless, is because my mother instilled that fear of retaliation, especially, physical retaliation. Because I knew that, let's just say I got angry and decided to, go against my mother, which is horrible, but let's just say I did that. Obviously, my mother would beat the crap out of me and probably kick me out of the house, and most likely I would not survive out there in the street, especially this day and age. But this day and age, I'm a grown ass adult, so gotta make my own money, which I am. But because of the household that I was living in, I ended up being a nice guy. And because of the lack of friends that I did not maintain, especially toward in the beginning of middle school. Middle school, I think that was the turning point where I started to become more lonely and didn't really have friends. You could say my anxiety increased and I suffer social isolation as a child. And that social isolation kind of followed me throughout my adulthood. But the most devastating thing that happened to me in recent years was learning that I was supposed to have a upper jaw surgery to fix my mouth. And the reason why it was a big deal to me is because of what I learned of its history and when it was supposed to happen. When I was talking to a medical uh, a medical insurance supplier, the person that basically looks over my medical history, she told me that I was supposed to have an upper jaw surgery to fix my mouth once and for all as a child. But because that surgery never happened, I essentially grew up with an abnormal mouth. That's why I both sound weird and have a hard time making, proper pronunciation, as you can hear in this video. And it got me depressed because, when you're a child, especially a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, or 2-year-old, you can't really do much for yourself. You have to be very reliant on your parents. And that's a fact that most people kind of understand. Like, whoever is taking care of you when you were 2 or 3 years old, you can't really do much for yourself because obviously you're a little kid, obviously you're kind of helpless. And the one person that failed to properly take care of me was my own mother. And when that lady is telling me right now, as a grown ass adult, told me about that surgery, I was super devastated and I got a little depressed because, this is a perfect example how your childhood follows you throughout your adulthood and essentially shape you into how you're going to be as an adult. And if you guys remember my last video, I used a Frederick Douglass quote that says, "It's easier to raise a child right than fix a broken man." I repeat, it's easier to fix a child right than fix a broken man. That quote really hits me to the core because that is true. The reason why I'm a weirdo in real life is because of my childhood trauma, and I'm trying my best to fix myself. But in order for me to fix myself, I first need to acknowledge what is my problem, what is my issue. And now the next step is learning how to apply to it. Just like Bruce Lee says, knowledge is not enough, you must apply. You must to learn how to do things. And right now I'm having a hard time doing that. But it's kind of funny that people look at you thinking that your issue is what's gonna make them have problems. But no, 90% of the time when I meet people, I feel like people understand. Well, at first they dislike me because I'm a weirdo, but 90% of the time, people will understand that I'm trying my best to respect other people's boundaries, but I promise you, I will not do anything to insult you or go against your boundaries. If you don't like me for whatever reason, it's fine. I'm not expecting anyone to like me or everybody to like me. What I expect is, give me a little respect and a little courtesy. And me, I will respect you back and show a little courtesy as well. And then I'll leave the hell of you alone. Like, I learned the hard way about respecting boundaries, but what I'm trying to get at, guys, is that whatever childhood you have, it's definitely going to shape you and mold you growing up as an adult. And what kind of radicalized me of going to the MGTOW, the black pill, the dating community, all that stuff is because I feel like I'm failing in life in terms of both economic and romance. And me as a man, if you're not excelling in romance or economically, then you kind of failed in life. And I think a lot of men will agree with this, but you kind of fail in life if you don't, properly fix yourself in the economic situation and a romantic situation as well. So I'm trying my best to get my shit together. I'm trying my best to, make good money. But I will admit it's hard because first things first, I gotta deal with my personal issues and fix my issues. But all these issues stem from my childhood. And when I was learning about the upper jaw surgery that my mouth needs to get fixed, I really want this surgery to get fixed, and luckily I'm in the process of getting this surgery. So I'm trying my best to, prepare myself for it, but at the same time, it's a reminder. It's a reminder that how your childhood follows you. And what radicalized me is about the whole MGTOW, my worldview, everything was, all through the childhood trauma that I went through. Just a reminder, guys, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate women. More than anything, I love them. The problem is, as I was growing up, I seen countless times, and it's not just my mother. Keep that in mind. It's not just my mother. It's also other women that I've seen that betrayed their husbands and essentially throw them under the bus. And those guys, they're fucked. Like, they can't really do much except rebuild their own life and, try again. But obviously they're gonna avoid women because it's too risky. Me, I feel like I think I'm destined to stay single, but I'm still open to it. Like, I'm still open to romance. But the stuff that I suffered through my childhood, it does affect me and it does follow me. So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Well, guys, I'm gonna end the video here, and I hope you understand everything I went through. So, message in the bottle, over and out.